Well, good morning, folks. Welcome back to a beautiful yet overcast morning. Just checking in on the no-dig raised bed garden that we're starting to prep here yesterday. The chickens are working overtime, it seems, to level and spread that straw mulch layer, so that's fantastic. We're going to let them work in there for close to a week, maybe sooner. It depends how hard they work before we layer in our compost and start planting in there. I think we're going to actually have to put some electro net around there just to once they're done, we want them to know they're done. And I have a feeling that if we seed in there, they're going to continue to work. So we're going to have to provide some encouragement to stay out. So we're going to be doing some garden seeding today. We're direct seeding into our garden beds south of the house here. So we're going to be using an Earthway garden seeder. And it is, oh my goodness, that makes life so much easier. And so you can direct sow directly into the soil. It's fantastic. It's actually looking like it might rain today. We had a few drops already, but we'll get that seeded. We'll get the sprinklers on, because even rainfall, these early kind of days is not going to provide enough unless we're getting like torrential downpours, right? So we'll get this seeded, get the sprinklers on, and then hopefully later today, maybe we'll even have some lambs. Fingers crossed. You filling up the water, Charlotte? Haha. Are you sure it's done? Did you get all wet? So yesterday I started working on cleaning out the chicken house, and I'm still working at it today. So this is a pine shavings and chicken manure that is composted down over the winter. It's nice and cool now, and we're gonna go ahead and apply it to our large garden. There's one section off on the west side where it is just hard pan clay, and we somehow missed getting any amendments over to that section when we added a whole bunch. So nothing's gonna grow in there. And so I'm gonna add this chicken manure and pine shavings, and I'm gonna till it in. I know I said I'm not gonna try to do any tilling, but in this case, if I just lay it on top of that hard pan clay, the wind is just gonna come up and give it to the neighbors. So there's really no point in not doing that. I'm gonna mix it in. The thing with clay is that when you talk about soil amendments, you're not gonna make it not clay, right? There's only so many different types of soil, and you can't change the chemical composition of the soil. All you can do is blend stuff in with it to make it more workable. And there's a lot of different opinions out there about adding things like sand, gypsum, compost, peat moss, all types of stuff into clay to make it more, workable. Now, I will say if you're adding things like sand or gypsum, you're gonna have mixed results because it all depends on the type of clay that you're working with. In some cases, adding sand to certain types of clay could just turn it to straight concrete, because sand will pack very tightly as well. And gypsum, you know what? Gypsum is one of those things. It's a non-organic material. I'm not really sure why you would add something like that to your clay, other than just simply to get it worked up. But I don't want to eat drywall carrots. I really don't want to. So if you can add, a good source of carbon, nitrogen, whether that's something like this, it's aged composted manure, or some peat moss or something like that, I think you'd be far better off. Work it into that top layer of the soil, and then from there, obviously that's gonna add almost a mulch layer. It will help to retain moisture, and if it can retain the moisture, the clay will actually be more malleable, and things like worms can come up, and they can actually drag those nutrients and that organic material down through the soil, and you'll see a vast improvement within a couple of years. There's no overnight fix for this, by the way. There's a lot of internet quick fixes that just aren't quick fixes. They might actually compound a problem for you next year. Well, for the most part, it looks like the garden's in. There's a couple things. We got some squash and some pumpkins and stuff to plant over on the far side there yet. But the peas, the beans, the beets, the dill, What else we put in there? Onions, all that stuff's all in there. I've reserved this for a couple more bags of seed potatoes we got coming. So we got the sprinklers fired up here. Now this half of the garden, from the straw mulch on over to here, is probably only going to get watered in this first 30 days, every 5 to 7 days, because you don't want to overwater it. It's just going to lead to misshapen potatoes, some weird, because as they chase growth and stuff. So yeah, once a week at worst, at best maybe every 3 days kind of thing. But 4 to 5 is 4 to 7 is probably pretty good. The stuff over there, because we just got it in today, we're going to leave that sprinkler go for probably 2 hours. We're going to let that ground get absolutely saturated down at least 8 to 10 inches below grade, so that it has some moisture base there to pull up from. Because we are getting into some pretty warm days. I mean, today is a really bad example because it is quite overcast, but we've seen some days 20, 21, 22 degrees Celsius. And because a lot of this organic material is mixed in here, that can wick a lot of moisture out of there. So we want to make sure it's got a good moisture base to pull from. And so some of that stuff will probably water every 2 days. And usually after the first watering, it's good to water for 45 minutes to an hour. Well, I just got done washing 15 dozen eggs. Man, oh man, was that ever a lot of eggs. If you don't know what that feels like, it feels like detention. You're really not sure what you did wrong, but you're getting punished for it anyways. Yeah, man, is it ever a nice afternoon out here. And I figured I'd take you down. This is in behind the chicken house here. This is the chicken house is over here. And we've got a whole bunch of trees, young trees planted here. There must be 75 of them back here, I think, thereabouts, that we planted. This is the future shelter belt. By the time they actually provide a shelter belt for the house, I'll probably be in an old folks home, but that's the intent anyways, to reduce wind and water erosion, and then reduce the wind pressure on the actual yard site. And over there by the little blue playhouse, Charlotte's little playhouse there, we had a cherry blossom tree that got planted a couple years ago. I don't really know what a cherry blossom tree is. I assume that it's just all of the flowers and none of the fruit. But it was there for like a week, and then somehow it just got snapped off. So I don't know if like it got run over by a moose, or one of the dogs tangled with it, or got hit by lightning. I don't know. Anyways, that's the result, right? So this tree was destined for, well, not much. So Carmen dug it up there a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at it and I thought, boy, it's budding out here. And then you get looking further down. No, there is some real signs of life here. So we dug it out from where it was beside the chicken house, and I decided today we're going to transplant it. So I transplanted it in here behind the chicken house because we've got 2 crabapple trees plus all these other trees. It was a great place for a tree to be. And maybe 20 years from now, if we're still making YouTube videos, if YouTube's even still a thing in 20 years, I'm sure it won't be. But if it is, we'll check in with this tree here and see if it's maybe 20 feet tall, and maybe we are getting cherries off of it. I don't even know. Wouldn't that be something? That'd be pretty cool. It turned out to be quite a lovely evening. Actually, about 6 o'clock, the skies opened up. Well, I didn't really open up. Maybe just opened up a crack. We've had like a light mist, you know, like a drizzle for the last 4 hours. And so it is nice and soaked the garden, even though we already watered it. Now everything's soaked. So that's good. I take that off my mind. Probably not gonna have to worry about watering that garden tomorrow. I also won't be able to plant anything else tomorrow, but that's fine. We are gonna have to run to the post office and check if our seed potatoes came in the mail yet or not. As you can hear, I'm just checking on the sheep. I don't think Olga's lambed yet. She probably won't lamb tonight. She's gonna be stubborn. She's probably gonna hang on to that lamb until June. My goodness. I sure hope not. Boy, I sure hope not. So the other beautiful thing about this slow soaking rain is, well, the other day I come in here and turned this compost pile, and there was areas of the pile that were quite dry. And I really, I tried dumping some water on it with some buckets, but even that, you really just can't get to lots of the spots. So a good soaking rain helps to get this wet everywhere it needs to be. And maybe tough for you guys to see at home there, but the steam is just rolling off of here. So I got my thermometer. We're gonna stick it in and just see what the temps are at. So we're kind of shooting for about 140 degrees there. We got, it looks like just shy of 150, so that's looking really good. We're in that range there where the microbes inside the pile are working at optimum efficiency, killing off pathogens, breaking down material. So that's fantastic. Well, anyways, it's already 10 o'clock at night, so there's really no better time of day to go inside, fetch up a cup of tea, maybe see if I can sneak in a cookie. So I'll let you go for now. I hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.